Hey Marcus, my name's Stuart Clark. I am the owner of Paul Davis Restoration of Mobile in North Baldwin County.
Yay! That's a mouthful, man.
It's actually North Baldwin, Mobile, North Baldwin, Clark, and Escambia County, but we shorten it down, keep
Very
it
cool.
simple.
Very cool. So, well, welcome to the podcast. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, to get started, we always want to hear about the person that we're talking to. So, where'd you grow up? Give us some of the background. Where'd you go to school?
Gotcha.
That kind of thing.
Grew up in West Mobile, off of Dawes Road in Leroy Stevens area. There's a big bend out there, and we had built a house over in Twin Lakes. Went to Baker Elementary and middle school. Murphy had a great AP program back in the day, and so my two older sisters both graduated from Murphy in their AP program, and then the ADD kid transferred over there as well. And
Thinking you were going to do the same?
Yeah. And then we moved to New York after my freshman year, and the whole thing just kind of flipped and changed. And all of a sudden I was in New York saying, yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir.
Yeah, and they were going, who's this Blake kid from the South?
Yes, that is exactly how it was.
Yeah.
And it was good and bad. It helped me get away with a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have because I was so polite and respectful, and
Yeah.
they just
You
weren't
would never,
used to it.
Yeah, it's never be this good,
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
It was wild.
Yeah, I growing up in DC and coming here was also very
Culture shock.
very much the same thing. So, but do you think of yourself? Your sisters were AP students. Do you think of yourself as a good student, or
I was a horrible student. I was good at test grades, and I was good at learning. I hated quarter projects. I hated homework, and I got to a point. Actually, I'm a high school dropout because I got to a point where I was just so frustrated with not understanding what benefit I was going to get out of certain portions of high school.
Yeah.
That I just got distracted. I was already thinking about what I wanted to do later. I wanted to be a marine biologist. And so I ended up dropping out, getting my GED, and going to college early.
Wow.
Because I was so fed up with high school. And I was in one of the top 10 high schools in the nation when we moved to New York.
Where'd you go?
From Mobile, Manhasset High School.
Okay. Yeah.
It's on the North Shore of Long Island. Everybody pretty much commutes to the city.
Yeah.
Bunch of lawyers, doctors, Wall Street. When I was getting out of the Marines, it was right around 9/11. And I was in New York the week prior to 9/11 with my sisters and some of their friends that owned Attitudes and Company, a hair salon here in Mobile, Cliff and Terry, who are like family to us. And they'd never been to New York, and they've got pictures on 9/7/2011 with the World Trade Center in the background.
God bless you.
But I was passing my resume to go work on Wall Street when I was getting out of the Marine Corps, and obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because the next week shut Wall Street down, and a huge portion of my friends from Long Island just spread out across the country to different places.
Wow.
We had a lot of friends lose a lot of family. It was crazy. It was a very wild time.
Well, this wasn't intended, but just to commiserate with you, like I was in DC at the time and had friends in the Pentagon when all that was going down, and we lived out by Dulles Airport. There was some concern about the jet that they didn't know where it was, that they were just going to shoot that puppy down, and we knew that it was coming to DC, and were concerned that it was going to be shot down over the area as well. So
my mother flew out of New York, LaGuardia, that morning cross country. She was the director of women's ministries for the Dutch Reformed denomination, the oldest Christian denomination in the nation. And we didn't hear from her for a hot minute. They landed her plane in Atlanta.
Wow.
And somebody had a little handheld battery operated TV, and they were holding it up. And my mom said there were about 300-400 people in this one big area all trying, and if you sneezed or coughed, everybody was giving you an eye, because they were like, hey, we want to hear what's going on here.
Yeah.
She said within a couple hours, every U-Haul, every car, every moped, every train ticket was sold. There was nothing available. And she was stuck for a couple of days in Atlanta trying to get here to Mobile to my sister's house.
Not to be too abrupt, but going back to your schooling though, I feel like you're describing some of my experiences too, in the sense that I don't think that schooling, or that currently the schools know how to deal with ADD people.
They never have, I don't think.
I mean, I remember standing in the hallway and having my teachers tell me that, oh, you're so smart, like if you would just apply yourself. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not interesting. You're just not interesting. And I think that's hard for people to understand, is that the ADD mind is an incredible thing when it's something that you're interested in. And if it's not something that you're interested in, then, oh my gosh, you could be you can be stuck in a really bad way.
And we would need like 3 PE classes during the day just to get the energy and the distraction like run out so that we can focus. I find that later in life I do better. I schedule productivity periods throughout the day, and I may sit down for 10, 12-hour day, but I try to work in shifts. Yeah. So I'm at my computer, I'm focused on a task. I've got a couple of tasks that I've got to knock out. When that's done,
you get up.
I get up, I walk around, I go to the restroom, I grab a Coke.
I'll go do dishes. I'll do anything. Just I can't sit there for that long. It just drives me insane.
The VA gave me hearing aids because of my hearing loss throughout my military service, and I find quite often what I do is I get out and I walk down to the cul-de-sac at the end of our street at the office and back, and I'll be walking on phone calls because that walking, I guess, helps my body focus on the phone call and being present in the phone call that I'm in, versus if I'm at my desk and I'm on the phone, I'm messing with my notepad, I'm making a note about
looking
something.
At what's on the computer
I've got a TV on the wall that I normally have the weather on, and I'm like looking at the weather, or I'm going to Facebook or something else that I'm interested in at work, and it just kills my productivity. So
I'm the same way.
I got to distract the body so the mind can focus.
Yeah, but I think there's also something to that. I think that ADD people, I don't know that we were originally intended to go into something that requires us to sit all day.
Agreed.
And, looking back at it, I think I would have really excelled at something that was more manual. It's the reason why I enjoy woodworking so much. It's the reason why I spend, even at my ripe old age, spend so much time like doing things, constructive things around the house, building things.
Same.
And I can't, I can't, to sit is just like, now granted, don't get me wrong, like I can be lazy with the best of them, and I love doing it, but like there's there's just something in your mind. It's like it's so much more it's like therapy, really, when you're using your hands and getting something done, and then you can take that thing and you can go done next.
For me, historically, it's always been fiberglass work. My dad and I, when I was a kid growing up, we would restore antique vehicles. And that was like our outlet. It was fishing, boats, antique vehicles, and woodworking. And he had a ton of woodworking tools. My grandfather was into rock hounding. My grandmother's been married 4 times. And
what's rock hounding?
Rock hounding, so like you're not old enough yet, but when you get another 20 years down the line, and you and the wife are like, apparently, let's buy an RV and go travel, you'll get out west and you'll realize that there's an entire ecosystem around rock hounding, and there's RV parks and there's tours where you can go to different places and you dig for geodes and you dig for rocks that have different stuff. And,
interesting.
And my grandmother, when her second husband passed away, her third husband was a fellow rock hounder that had lost his wife, and they would go on these trips together. Cool. And they had met in that ecosystem. And then her fourth husband was also out of that whole ecosystem. And so it was like, it's wild. And it's typically those people that, my grandparents, they had lived in Michigan, but also spent winters in Florida because they had a house down there. And they would also travel in RV, but when they got too old, it just became fishing and staying at the house in Michigan in the summer and Florida in the winter. But there's a whole world around that stuff. And I've got tons of cool things left over for
All right, folks, you see what happens when you get 2 ADD people together. I mean, we're covering everything. We're covering like rock geodes and, anyway, this is going to be a fun conversation. So now you said that you went to Murphy.
Yep. MURPHY, Murphy, huh?
And then went to New York, did not graduate, got your GED, went to college?
Yep. Went to Key West Community College, studying pre-marine biology technology. I couldn't go to a straight 4-year university with a GED, so I had to have a step foot in. So my guidance counselor worked with me and my parents and was like, here's a plan, get your GED and just go to college.
Yeah.
Get rid of this high school thing that you don't like. And so I did, and I went to Key West Community College for 1 semester. I highly don't recommend.
I can only imagine why.
Sending a 17-year-old kid to Key West. I figured out how to get into every bar.
Hey, I got a good idea for you, Mom and Dad. I want to go to college in Key West.
There were places like Rick's and Rum Runners where you could go in before it was too late and order food and hang out and just never leave.
Yeah.
And then when you left after they started taking door fees, you get your hand stamped on your way out, and nobody ID'd you coming back in. So I had a whole system figured out. It lasted almost one semester, and then went and fought forest fires out in Eastern Oregon in the Blue Mountains for Grayback Forestry Service. That was awesome for a season, and then I joined the Marines.
Very cool. And you said that after the Marines, you intended on going to Wall Street, but I'm assuming does that not require a degree of some sort?
No.
It doesn't?
Absolutely not.
So you just got to pass your Series 7 or whatever it is?
The most important thing to get a job on Wall Street is knowing somebody or being born into a family on Wall Street. The likelihood of getting that job that you want comes to a couple of different things. Ivy League gets an interview, of course, because you're probably going to know somebody in your time at
a fraternity or
in the Ivy League school whose dad is on Wall Street. A good buddy of mine, Brian, he had saved a kid at Jones Beach on the South Shore of Long Island from drowning, whose dad's address was 1 Wall Street, and gave him his card and said, when you get older, call me. And that guy is Brian Sullen. I love you, buddy. He is the hardest working, most creative, just hustling all day long. Even in his professional career, he's still waiting tables at a restaurant Friday and Saturday night because he's making so much money, he just can't not. Yeah. He saved that business card, and he called that guy and was like, hey, you remember? And the guy's like, absolutely, come on down. And that was his interview on Wall Street. But after 9/11, I have friends that moved to Arizona. One of my good buddies in high school, his dad was on one of the floors. It was a direct impact from an airplane. And we know that was pretty innocent. It was just so much confusion around 9/11. I could talk for days about that one.
So after that, you mentioned Oregon. You bounced around. So how did you
fought forest fires in Oregon? Then joined the Marines. Got out of the Marines. Went to work for Royal Caribbean. Managing IT teams on cruise ships. It was a blast. It was. I had completely shifted because of 9/11. Wall Street was no longer an option, and that was my only thing that I had been laser focused on. Yeah. A member of my parents' church in New York, where my dad was the preacher, their son, who's no longer with us and was just one of the best people ever, he worked at Royal Caribbean and they said, hey, you need to call him and check this out. And Royal Caribbean sent me on a cruise out of San Diego, California, and went down to Ensenada and back. I had an all-access pass. The IT manager there said hi in broken English, and handed me my credentials and walked away, and I saw him for like another 20 minutes. And the rest of the time, I had full access, and I was like, this is great. I'm going to go do this. So I got to live in Papenburg, Germany, and build out the Brilliance of the Seas, which was the most technologically advantaged ship in the world. Got to sail out with it and cross the Atlantic with it and do all of Northern and Eastern Europe. It was awesome. It was a great time. I got to see so much and work with the international community and just see so much of the world, which I also did in the Marines, but it's different when you're walking through Indonesia with a rifle versus
for sure.
going to Germany to check it out or Russia to check it out. Yeah, so it was different.
No, you've had an incredible history, or your resume is all over the place to say the least. But I guess my biggest question is, how does one do that? How does one go from, being a Marine, okay, I can't do Wall Street, I'm going to go do this other thing, I'm fighting fires, because most people pick a lane
and stick to it
and they stay in it, but that's not terribly interesting for somebody with ADD.
Interesting feedback that I've received over the years. I never go into a scenario with a preconceived notion because I don't know anything about it. So when I went to Waffle House, so I went to South Alabama. I get recruited by the Army. I joined the local 1st of 131st Airborne Air Assault here out of West Mobile as a crew chief who is going to eventually fight for a slot for flight school, go to flight school and be a Black Hawk pilot, which I ended up doing, and that was amazing.
Incredible, man.
But what I found is, and what people told me was, because like at Waffle House, they've got the Waffle House Way, and it's a book, and they've spent 60 years putting it together. I don't care what restaurant you've worked in. You don't have the collective experience of tens of thousands of employees over 60 years refining a process. No. So I had bussed tables for like a couple months at a pizza joint in New York where my sister worked between college semesters, right? Yeah. And so that was the limit of my restaurant experience other than delivering pizza. And so I walked into Waffle House and I just learned the book and I did what was in the book and it worked so well. The next opportunity was a completely different lane, completely different industry, but I went into it the same thing. I know multi-unit management, I know leadership, I know how to get people motivated, I know how to do certain things that translate to any career. And I was in an interview in the finance world because at one point I managed 50 locations for TMX Finance across the lower half of Alabama and Georgia. And I was in an interview for the regional manager position there, and I'm in front of the CEO. And they said, why study business development with a concentration in finance at South Alabama? And I said, because I feel that if I know the numbers and I know the P&L and the balance sheet, it doesn't matter what the widget is. I can work my way from the financials outward and add value. I can see things that are anomalies. I can look for trends. I can compare budgets to actual numbers and then start to dig in and figure out where the breakdown is. And I have no preconceived notion as to what it is because of my previous experience. So I'm seeing it with a fresh set of eyes.
Hello?
Hi, me.
Yeah. This is Christy, my wife.
Hey,
nice to meet you. I'm Stuart.
Hey,
It's a pleasure to meet you. We've chatted.
I did.
We've chatted on social, and I haven't forgotten about you. I just haven't gotten to you, but it's coming.
I totally understand. So, sorry.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Love you.
Love you.
It's kind of disappointed I didn't get a yellow hammer, but that's okay.
I had no idea.
That's funny. I knew as soon as the door opened, I knew what was going on, and I knew that.
I had a feeling.
That's great.
So that's why I feel like I've done extremely well in a bunch of different industries.
Well, and what I was going to say is that's the exact opposite of what most business owners do, right? Most business owners, if you read, what's the book that it's over there. Man, I can't believe I can't remember this book, but it's all about, you're a person that knows how to make pies and you go into pie making and, but then there's all the things the administrative things that you have to do and stuff like that, those are all unknowns for most people that go into business. Correct. And so I've always, I think I've said this plenty of times, like I've always felt like the numbers were something that were kind of a mystery to me in business. And, I've done what I can to get better at that.
Yeah.
But the reality is I don't know books like somebody who's gone to college and studied books is going to know books. I've done what I can to bone up on it, but yeah, so,
And I didn't graduate from South. I dropped out of South because I won a slot. I competed went through the board process, got my slot for Warrant Officer School and Flight School. At the end of my junior year.
Peace out.
And it was right after Katrina. There was a tree down on my boat in the front yard at 116 Hillcrest. I remember where I was renting at the time, and power was out at the house, and I looked at my roommate, Philip English, and I said, peace out, guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to flight school. They got a slot open right now,
yeah.
And I'm going. It was like 4 days after Katrina. I'm at Fort Rucker up near Dothan, Alabama, getting checked in and getting ready for flight school.
Yeah, because not many people get that opportunity.
No, and I wanted it. Yeah. And I wanted it bad.
Yeah. Well, so how did you find your way back to Mobile?
My oldest sister, Sarah, owns Bay Gourmet in Crown Hall down here. Okay. She had stayed and had kind of always been here. And
she's the rock.
She's the rock that kept us in Mobile, literally. And ended up my middle sister, Jennifer Clark, she's a PhD doctor, works over at the Mitchell Cancer Center. She came back with my nephew Henry, who's an engineer over by the Brookley Airfield. for a petrochemical company, building valves and safety valves and stuff like that. And then now my parents have both retired and come back down out of the ministry, and then converted over to the Presbyterian church, and now they've been intern pastors kind of everywhere. My mom's out at Providence Presbyterian, now out of Schillinger's and Cottage Hill. Just, we've all made it back down here now.
Cool.
And this is home.
Yeah.
It always has been. People complain about Mobile for various different reasons, but in my experience, I've lived in California, I've lived in Oregon, I've lived in Florida, I've lived in New York, and I've lived in Mobile, Alabama, and I've traveled the world. The culture, the combination of culture, food, the pace at which people move.
Yeah.
This is the best combination of those things. It's not so high speed that you can't have hobbies and still keep up.
Yeah.
It's not so slow that you're like Eastern Oregon where things just move. It is. People talk about being country and redneck here because they haven't been to the Midwest country and seen the redneckery that goes on in those areas. I mean, it is a whole nother level of redneckery in some other parts.
When you have
of
to
the
drive
country.
a couple of hours to get to the nearest Walmart.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I've been there. There before.
Yeah.
I just, growing up in DC is not anyone's hometown,
No, it is not.
right?
Yeah.
Anybody who's spending time there knows DC's nobody's hometown. And so when I came here, it felt like, now granted, it took me a while to get accepted, and there are still some that don't accept me, but
I feel like that's coming around though. I feel like that mentality has been changing over the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It feels like it's gotten a lot easier. And I think the secret to cracking that is just people want to know that you're invested in the community and that you're not just, a leech, here. And so, I mean, as I've gotten more and more heavily involved, it's been easier. But, I love this area. I think you're right. I think, the pace of living and the opportunity and, the growth that we're seeing here and the growth that we're going to continue seeing here for, quite some time are all very good indicators that, we're probably in the right place at the right time.
And the natural resources, the outdoor availability here.
Yeah.
And I still hear people complain about it, but I'm like, there is so much outdoors availability around here that is free to the public that you can drown yourself in it.
If the world were to end tomorrow, at least we have fishing and we have hunting and we have agriculture and stuff like that. Like
we've got all of it
if
here.
you were in DC, you'd be trying to get the hell out is what you would be doing. So
because you'd be the bullseye where everybody's trying to target.
100%. That's one of the reasons why I love.
I love DC though. I love this. I get emotional when I visit DC. My family came. John and Priscilla Alden came over on the Mayflower, and so we've been here since the beginning. We got family kind of spread out everywhere, but when I go to DC, I feel it more than I do anywhere else. Like I don't feel the longevity of being here and the connection to this country as much as I do at any time than when I'm walking around in DC.
I get that. I mean, it is an extremely important land mass.
And the history and the way that we've put together, the walls with, our lost veterans, from foreign wars on the wall, in different places, and the Vietnam Memorial and all of that stuff. It just, it hits. My family's been involved in every skirmish this country's ever had, including people deployed right now that are helping our country, and I get a little teary-eyed and emotional every time I go to DC. My wife kind of laughs at me about it, but
deep down
she's tougher than I am.
Deep down, she likes that she's got a softie because there's plenty of guys that wouldn't even recognize that there's something to be appreciated and kind of held on to here, and it's that feeling that that communicates that. I don't know. DC's a great place to visit. It's not a great place to live, right?
It's like New York at Times Square for New Year's or Mardi Gras in New Orleans. You got to do it once.
Yeah.
You got to go see it.
Yeah.
But then you're pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's like, I've done that once. I don't need to do it again.
Yeah, I don't need to go back to that.
Well, what are you doing now? Tell us about Paul Davis. Now that we're 30 minutes in. So
I had before Paul Davis, I had worked for a local company, CNC Catastrophe and National Claims, and they are an insurance adjusting company that is nationwide. And I had a house fire while I was there, and I'm thinking, hey, I'm in the industry. I got a leg up. I've got a great insurance policy. This is going to be smooth sailing. I hired one of the national brands that has a presence locally. I refuse to say the name of them because I just don't feel it's professional. And a big challenge with what I do in this community is because of companies similar to that have taken advantage or not communicated and done wrong by the consumer base here in Mobile. So I have a house fire, and it's 4:30 in the morning on a Sunday. Our oldest, Hawkins, is less than a year old, so my wife had just put him to bed, and she says, hey, the exhaust fan in the guest bathroom at the end of the hallway is making a crazy noise. I said, all right, I'll check it out in the morning, no big deal. And so she lays down, and my father-in-law had passed away the previous year, and we had talked my mother-in-law into selling her house and buying close to us. And so she had moved in with her cat, and 15 minutes or so later, the cat is doing laps in the hallway. And it's a pretty long hallway. It was a decent sized house. And so it's making a ton of racket, and it just echoed like crazy. So I'm like, I got it. I get up, I go to the bedroom door and I open it. My mother-in-law's at the end of the hallway picking up the cat. So I get back to bed and say, hey babe, Beth's got it. And almost instantly Beth says, Haley, I think y'all need to get up. I think the house is on fire. To which my wife says I went into Marine mode. And so
Yeah.
I jump up and I go down the hallway, and the attic access is glowing orange
Oh, God.
in the rectangle around it. And having fought forest fires and understanding a bit about fire, I cracked it first, and then I opened, and it was flames from one end to the other. So told my wife to grab our oldest and get out with the dog. My mother-in-law grabbed her cat. Cat shredded her arms up. She walked back to grab some documents as the fire came through the ceiling in her room, so she burned her feet a little bit. I open up the stairs and grab my first fire extinguisher that my wife always made fun of me. You should all do this. Put a fire extinguisher in your master bedroom. My wife was like, why do we have a fire extinguisher on the dresser in the master bedroom? And I said, because if there's ever a house fire, we're on a second floor. It's like a 20-foot drop out of the window to concrete. We're not doing that.
Right.
But I can grab you, our son, wrap you in a blanket, and run out the door behind a fire extinguisher, and we're going to live.
Right.
What condition we're in, I don't know. But I know that my will and want and drive is going to get us out of the damn house.
Right.
And so I grabbed that fire extinguisher, and at the top of the steps, when I opened it up, you could see the fan blades for the attic exhaust fan, which was what caused the fire. And an interesting story about that, the class action lawsuit against the company that made it lost. That fund was emptied and depleted before my house was built, which means an attic exhaust vent fan involved in a class action lawsuit
Wow.
that had like $100 million kitty of money had already been depleted before my house construction was completed. So that came off a shelf after that happened and got installed at my house. Which is a common thing. I'll never have another wired-in attic exhaust vent fan. They'll always be independent, solar-powered, so I never have to worry about that going bad.
Wow.
But from that point forward, the misery happened. And it was just, I mean, it was such a horrible experience. From items being missing, to house being left unlocked, to somebody denying that they put a dumpster in the wet part of my yard that I had on my Ring camera, that I'm telling this person I'm looking at it on the camera, and she's
still
telling me,
denying it?
we did not put it there. We told them not to put it there. I know they didn't put it there. I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, it's there right now. And I've got to, you know, I mean, it was just
Yeah. I didn't put it
ridiculous things. The company, and it's important, you know, clinical psychology will put a sudden and incidental loss that removes you from your home one level below losing a family member to
Yeah.
death. And so that's pretty traumatic. And so a big thing is to get back to some semblance of normal. And the quickest way to do that is to go identify things in your house clothing-wise that can get cleaned to get back to you really quickly. And then you've got clothes. And you're not just living off of the t-shirt, shorts, and underwear that you bought at Walmart to get through the next week on your way to the hotel that you were hopefully able to drive through because your keys didn't burn up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So these are real
Yeah.
issues. And so they make this big conversation with me about bringing me clothes, and we're not bringing you linens and stuff that you can, you know, use and help. And now it's been 2.5, 3 weeks. It still hasn't shown up. And so I'm calling and I'm like, hey, you know, we identified some boxes. And they're like, we're bringing them to you. And don't worry, we're not bringing any linens, and we're not bringing, stuff that's, covered in fire soot. And the first box I open when they get to our rental on Dauphin Island is a box of linens that are full of soot because they're from the room that caught fire, and they've got a dryer sheet on top of it. I open the next box, it's shoes from the hanging rack on the back side of the door. And a minute ago I mentioned my mother-in-law walked into her room to grab some stuff. That fire that came through right over that door. And all the ash that came down, this was one of those plastic things you hang on the back of the door and you put all your shoes in it.
Yeah.
So that was all collecting soot, right? And those were the shoes that were in the next box. And so now my wife and my mother-in-law are having PTSD because every box I open is making the whole rental property smell like our house fire that we're trying to deal with. They forgot about my job for 2 weeks. They fired the first 2 managers on it. The third manager was like the best person on the face of the planet. You know who you are. And then they removed her from my job that same day. I have, at this point, taken over the forensic engineering brand owned by the same ownership that owns CNC. And I'm out in Houston, Texas on a project with forensic engineers. I come back 2 weeks later, nothing's happened on my house and it's unlocked. And it's been completely forgotten about. And so I call and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, oh my goodness, it went back into the queue when we had to move this particular person off of your job and we never reassigned it. We're sorry, we're gonna get somebody there today. The bill was $23,000-ish, and that it was a big house. It was pretty standard for that size of a loss. But when they deposited the check, they didn't account for it in their system, so they threatened liens on my house for 6 months after collecting and cashing the check. They come to return everything to the house, and they finish the first load. And I said, "Okay, hey, when's the next truck coming?" And they were like, "Next truck?" I said, "Yeah, the next truck." With all the rest of the stuff? Oh, sir, this is everything. It's in these boxes and so on. I'm like, there's big pieces of furniture missing. There's, all kinds of stuff missing. And 3 more of those instances before we got the majority of everything back. Majority. There's still a handful of stuff that over time, you have no idea all your possessions. How long have you lived in your house?
Well, no, we just moved in 3 years ago, but
3 years is long enough.
Long enough.
There's stuff that you bought that's still in the package with the sticker on it that you've forgotten about, that you don't remember until you're packing out from a fire. And so there's things you remember over time that were missing. And the reality is I've got mugshots of some of the folks that were on my job that did other jobs and ended up being arrested for grand theft. And so the combination of all these things just made the experience horrible. So I've moved on from the insurance adjusting world. I've got a business model. I'm starting a business. My buddy at the time was running United Rentals for Baldwin County. Super nice guy, Nick Costaritas, great local guy. Met him at University of South Alabama in an accounting class. We're both looking at boats on our computer instead of paying attention to class. And he calls me and he's like, man, with your background with CNC and your adjuster base, he's like, there's this Paul Davis restoration thing you should check out. Yeah. And so I go meet with those folks and they've got a process and a system that prevents all the things that went wrong with my job. I mean, to the point where I open a box, it's a large box, it's about this big. I pulled this much packing material out of it. And I've got pictures of all of this stuff. I documented everything to send to the state insurance commissioner and I'm sending to my insurance agent. And the Sam's Club dog biscuits? Yeah. When you have a house fire, any box of anything that you had in your pantry that's been opened is trash. Yeah. There is the soot, the carcinogens in the air.
Yeah, it's toxic.
You don't want it. Yeah. So in the restoration and the mitigation world, you don't pack out food. You throw away food. I've been charged for 1.5 years of storage for a big giant box that is this deep in packing paper that's bundled up, and there's a half-finished dog biscuit box from Sam's Club. That's the only thing in that box. I get to the next box, and it's a couple half-finished boxes of cereal, the bin that holds our rice, the bin that holds this, the bin that holds that, and they're all still half full, half empty. And you see like the dry mold and the other stuff growing on it, and it was like all of our pantries got packed out into boxes. We got billed for all of that stuff. And that is a part of their challenge for that company to be able to handle all of this stuff. Just created more of a complication for them. I'm sure if they had fewer boxes, it would have been easier. And if they'd followed the protocol, would have been easier, but they didn't. They wanted to boost a bill. And that's the reason in this market, so many people don't trust it. And so it was kind of like, and I don't force religion on anybody. I just tell my staff, I'm not concerned with what it is that drives you to be a better person, whether it's your grandmother and the way that you were brought up, your parents, or God. But for me, it's God and my family and my upbringing, and that I don't want to let people down. I'm a very empathetic person. My heart hurts a lot, and that's the downside to that. But it was like God grabbed me by the collar and was like, guess what, guy? This is why your life sucked for 2 years. And I mean, it was every step of the way. There was another thing. When I pack out somebody's house, if I'm packing this room out, I take a picture of this guy. I create a room that says podcast room in our app. And then we've got a bunch of QR codes that get printed out. I form a box. I stick my QR code to that box. I start packing. I'm going to take this DJI case. I'm going to take a picture of it. I'm going to scan the QR code. Then I'm going to wrap it properly. It's going to go into that box. Now this is associated with this box, which is associated with this room. Right?
Yep.
When I get to my warehouse, I've got storage vaults that have QR codes that get reprinted for every customer. And so there's a numeric system for the vaults, and I go in, and when we're unpacking that box from the truck into the storage vault, we scan the QR code, And you call and say, hey, man, I left my lucky toothbrush in the podcast room. Any way you can get it. I know you guys had 5 trillion boxes. We go, sure, no problem. Give me an hour.
Right.
We open up the app.
Because I got to have my lucky toothbrush.
We go to the podcast room. We look for the picture of the lucky toothbrush. We confirm with you that this is, in fact, the lucky toothbrush. Now we know what box and what vault it's in, and we just go get it out. And it takes about 45 minutes on average when something like that happens. And you come by the office, and it'll be sitting at the front desk for you.
Wow.
No question about it. It's not a, where is it, or how do we find it? It is very crystal clear.
Yeah.
We pull up, contents track, we go to that job, we go to that room, we scroll through the pictures, we know where your object is.
So you're uniquely qualified to answer this question, I think. And that's that having spent so much time, I graduated from college in 96. I got my first tech job in 96 or 97, I think. And I've been in technology ever since, whether it was developing large-scale systems for the DoD or Department of State or building a website for some local realtor or something, you know? I mean, and the thing that always has been interesting to me is that the trades don't follow processes like IT does, and they also don't use technology in the same way that IT does. But I feel like that's changing, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
I feel like it's changing because I watch Dave's Auto on YouTube.
Okay. I'll have to check that one out.
I'm partially joking, but I'm seeing this recurring thing, and I'm joking, but I'm not joking.
Okay.
I am addicted to Dave's Auto on YouTube, and please don't judge me. All they do is engine replacements in large trucks. So not large trucks, but like full-size trucks. And, it's Dodge, it's GMC, it's, whatever. And I'm noticing that when they find something, they're taking a picture and documenting it. When they put the scan tool in, they're taking a picture and documenting it. When they find a screw unscrewed, they're taking a picture and documenting everything before they even get started as a way of showing whereas before it used to just be, you take your car to a mechanic and they'd magically hand the keys back to you in an hour and you'd assume that whatever had been requested is now done. And I just, even when we were going through the build process for our house, no slight on the builder because he's no different than any of the other builders in the area, but I was like, man, how much better would communication be between all the different groups that are involved in making this large thing happen?
Communication is so hard.
If there was not a project management app that they were using where they could see, these are all the things that need to be done. And, the homeowner can go in and say, well, I'm going to create a task list of my punch list items. The sink in the guest room doesn't work. Whatever. There's a spot there's a hole in the wall in the living room or whatever. And, it keeps everybody on the same page. Plus it, if you're a sub, then you're in the system, hey, the electricians got finished yesterday. I'm the plumber. I got to go back in and finish all the things up, the next day or something. I just, I think it's really interesting that more trades aren't using technology in that way, because it can be a huge game changer. You know, it's a professionalism thing. Hey, I need my lucky toothbrush, hand it over. You've got all my stuff. Please don't make this even worse by holding it hostage.
And that was the part for us.
Right?
We felt helpless.
Yeah.
We felt like we had no control over our process.
Yeah.
We had no communication. We had no control. We didn't know where our stuff, somebody else had it. My wife's, my father-in-law was big into woodworking. And when my wife was 13, the two of them built a jewelry box.
Oh, wow.
And it's about this big by this tall.
Please tell me that made it through the fire.
on the last delivery,
Yeah.
that came back to the house.
Good.
After we had been told 3 times that there was nothing more.
Wow.
The last delivery that showed up. And you have no idea the relief, the elephant off of my back that it was that because I called that company. And I'm that guy. I take ownership of stuff. Like I called that company.
You weren't going to check
it's
the fan
on me
until the morning,
right?
Yeah. How are you feeling as? You know what I mean, like,
exactly.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But that's one of the things I loved about Paul Davis. When I was interviewing Paul Davis, because I think that's important. When you're making a big decision, you need to interview the family that you're marrying into and your wife and know everything about her. You need to interview the company you're going to work with. And people look at job placement or finding a career or finding a franchise that you want to buy into as more of a who will accept me and how can I convince these people I'm good enough. Yeah. I look at it the opposite and I say, is this an organization that's going to mirror my vision for the future and that I can really align with? And so I'm talking to a brand new franchisee in San Diego, California, who's a former Marine. And when he got out of the Marines, he went into the VC world for 15 years. And he was looking at what industries were recession-proof long-term, what industries with technology were going to do better and be more bolstered up and not more spread apart and knocked down. And he interviews the Paul Davis group, and they've got core values. We've got vision, mission. We've got 10 serving basics. You know, one of those 10 serving basics is let your customer tell the story once. Everybody on your team doesn't need to know the story. They don't need to go ask somebody that just went through a traumatic experience to tell them about the story. No. The flip side of that is some customers want to tell. Their way of dealing with the trauma is to continually say it over and over again. So you got to be willing to listen to it, but you don't need to ask for it, because if they're the different kind of person and that trauma is going to hurt, you don't want them to talk to
you. You don't be the trigger.
So there was the core values, the mission statement, the 10 serving basics, and then the technology. He's a tech guy. And he said, you know, restoration isn't very tech savvy. Well, Paul Davis Restoration made a shift about 8 years ago and stopped going and looking for contractors. So when I went through owner school, one of my good buddies, Ty Nickelberry from Austin, Texas, he sold his chiropractic office and went into this. A guy in New Jersey, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he inherited a position as, one of the, he held the first, second, third, fourth down flag on the Jets sideline. He was an attorney for 38 years, sold his practice, bought the Paul Davis territory for his part of New Jersey. They're not contractors. They don't have insurance background. They don't have contractor background. What they have is a proven track record running systems and processes and understanding and embracing technology. So what Paul Davis has done is said, we need to find a blend. The people that have the experience and the know-how to do the work, that have contractors' licenses, but they also have other businesses that they've been successful in or leadership roles that they've been successful in that will come in and embrace the science behind mold, water, fire, asbestos, lead-based paint, and the processes for how we engage with customers, accept claims, process through a claim to final payment, and close a job out.
Yeah.
And that is, in my opinion, is the future of restoration, because it takes away Chuck in a truck who isn't really comfortable with a computer and inputs somebody who's going to put a process like contents track into place and live and die by it, because I'm not willing to let another homeowner go through what I went through. It's not going to happen. You'll get frustrated with me. We're human.
Right.
We break stuff. We scratch stuff. We mess stuff up. We struggle with communication just like everybody else on the planet, but it's how we respond. You know, our policy If I break that, if my employee goes to pack this up and they break the hinge on the back of it, the difference maker for me is that my team knows my story very well because they hear about it. And when we screw up, they really hear about it. But my process and our flow is, as soon as you realize it was broken or you scratched it or you dinged it or whatever you did, you take a picture, you send it to my MIT manager, Thomasina, or myself, or both, and we immediately get to work on a solution. Is it a repair? Is it a replace? Is it a touch-up? What's the fix? Then we proactively go to the customer right then. As soon as we have all agreed that we have a good game plan, we go to the customer and we say, hey, I messed up your case. It's the hinge on the back. I didn't want to have to buy you the whole new mic that comes with it, but we were able to find a case replacement. It's going to cost us $43. It'll be here in 7 days. Does that work for you? And you say yes, we're pulling the trigger and we'll get you your new case replaced. And then you're back to being whole and you were taken care of. But if you find that when you unpack the box,
completely different. Yeah.
Then these jerks, they broke this and they didn't even tell me. They might not have realized. I try not to ever associate malice to something that could just be negligence or an accident.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time, nobody intended harm to you, or the person didn't mean to hit you on the road. None of that. People aren't going through their day trying to ruin other people's days. There are some, but they're very few.
It's interesting.
I try to live that way.
You say that, and like just flippantly, like people aren't going through the. And I think if you really kind of like think about that, like, if you're married, I'm married to this person. Does this person have ill will towards me? No, more than likely they don't. They're just not. You're not syncing as far as what you're thinking, or you're not communicating enough, or you're not telling them exactly what it is that you need from them, or there's something. It's always really about communication. It's about finding the right words or the right way of saying what it is that how our expectations aren't being met. But I just think it's funny that we get so upset at times and we just assume that and maybe it's just getting older and realizing like not everybody thinks the same way. Not everybody has the same life experiences and looks at things the same way. And so, I try not to get too miffed, when something like that happens, because you don't know, like person could be having a bad day. They could be in an emergency situation, or they could just be an asshole.
If nothing
else, those are all
else,
options.
Look at your life, look at your wife's life, look at your friends' lives. How many of them have time to spend during their day planning out a way to ruin yours?
Yeah. No, they don't have any.
None of them do, right?
No.
And nobody's different.
No.
And everybody's got struggles, and everybody's struggling for time. And the only difference is how they go through life dealing with it and their perception of the people around them. And some people just get so wrapped around the axle that people are out to get me. They're not.
No.
They're going through their life. They might not care about you and yours, and that's why something happened. Right. But they're not actively trying to disrupt your life. And the few people that are, we know who those people are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't take long.
No, I know who those people are. I mean, I had some run-ins with them, and it's not, when you run into those types of people, you better have your big boy pants on, because it's usually, anyway. All right, I'm going to get you back on track. And I've very much enjoyed hearing the story. I can only imagine that that's solidified you in such a way that most people would not, if
my
you've had a
why
bad
is
experience,
deep.
Your why is deep.
And I'm not letting it go anywhere.
Right.
I can't.
So is there a person, a book, or a resource that's changed the way you think about business?
Ooh. Wow.
These are my questions, not AI.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Right now, the current book that I'm hoping is going to change the way I look at business is Traction and the EOS system. A good buddy of mine with C2 Wealth Strategies locally, Joseph Turlington, invited me to an event.
Wes Cootie is a good friend.
At the Container Yard over here, not the Innovation Portal.
Yeah.
And great location, great setup. It was a great presentation. Fell in love with the process. Been hearing about it. The top 10% of Paul Davis's are called the Lighthouse offices. 80% of them use the EOS process.
Yeah. You very definitely should adopt it.
Yeah, so I'm working on that. My operations manager, Jason, and I are both reading through it. He's I'm the visionary. He's the one that ropes me in. My ADD won't let me remember the name of that position.
Yeah.
So currently that's the one, but I can't nail down an individual one. I'll say this. The Power of Positive Thinking, my dad gave me a hard copy of that book that was given to him way back in the day, and he's got notes throughout it. And the last 8 months or so, that's probably the one that's made the most impact on me now, because I'm sharing that in our production meetings. I'll start off with something out of there that was highlighted by my dad that I feel like affects current time.
Wow.
And I'll talk about a project or something that we're working on and trying to accomplish and how to apply that to it. So the Power of Positive Thinking is probably the one through the years that I keep coming back to. But without a doubt, the Bible, of course, above everything. That's the no-brainer. But outside of that, probably the Power of Positive Thinking for the long term and currently traction.
Yeah, it's amazing. They're finding now, they've done studies that, whether you think positively or negatively, you're correct.
Fact.
Right?
If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah, you're right. So, if you haven't really ingrained that in your belief system, then you really should. And, if you're out there listening, you really should, because it's really easy to kind of look at things that are going on in the world and just think negatively about them. But if you can find the silver lining in that, there's opportunity to be made. And that's the difference between, an entrepreneur and
it's a change that happens now.
Yeah.
So when you find that positive piece and that positive outlook of it, the change in attitude that you've got happens instantly. It's not something you're working on over time and waiting for a result. Traction is one of those things. You work on it over time. A year and a half from now, you're like, holy cow, things are going so much more smooth. At least that's what people say. But the Power of Positive Thinking and changing your mindset, that's a now thing. I just reminded myself that I'm looking for the negative. I need to be looking for the positive, because the positives find the solution and move progress forward, and the negatives find distractions and reverse progress. Yeah. Instantly, you're seeing a change when you go this direction, and instantly, you're doing exactly what you've been doing and going backwards when you're looking this way. Yeah. So that's probably, in my opinion, the most instant impact book. 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, that was a good one. You get little good snippets out of that one. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that's another good one. But those are building habits over time and great for you, but Power of Positive Thinking.
He's pointing over his shoulder because I have a library of books over there that we were talking about.
And we match. We both have the same collection of books.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely some winners in there. What are you building towards right now? What's the next chapter look like for you?
Man, we're working on, we were talking about Waffle House earlier because I spent some time there, and talking about getting your house in order. We're revamping some of our systems and processes and workflows
because of traction.
In big part, well, that's why I was looking for it. I didn't realize I needed traction. Yeah. I was working on the same things that traction is helping me do and doing for me. So that's really what I'm focused on now, and our next evolution. So we outgrew our building. We've got about 5,000 square feet of a warehouse. And in 8 months, we had outgrown our warehouse. And so we signed a 3-year lease. I love my landlord. I've got a great landlord. He's got a bunch of other properties, but I don't always want to be in a position where I've got a landlord. Yeah. I want a building that I can build the way that I want, and I can remodel the way that I want, so the flows work with what we're doing. Right. So at the same time we're doing the traction process right now, we're long-term planning and looking for that right building, that right property. I walked through one yesterday with a good person, and man, I tell you what, it's interesting, the little tidbits of information and knowledge and introductions you get in everything in life, including just walking through a building with a stranger.
What do you mean?
We made a horrible decision. I made a horrible decision in the beginning with the service vehicles we purchased. Okay. Did a bunch of research on lowest cost per mile for service on a vehicle, and bought a bunch of
vehicles.
And I'm talking to him about it yesterday, and he's like, yeah, we bought this brand new Dodge ProMaster, high roof, long wheelbase for $35,000 out the door. And I'm like,
Did what?
I said, did what? And he's like, yeah, it was already modified for an office. It came with the manufacturer warranty. It was through a dealer. It had 30 miles. We could buy the extended warranties. He's constantly got deals like this. And, and he puts me in touch with that guy. Puts me in touch with an attorney who's real good at helping collect when people are not wanting to make their long past due payment. And things of that nature, and just like the conversations we started having, and mutual connections, and people that we knew, and sharing resources, it was just awesome, And getting that out of just, I called a number on the front of a building, spoke to a really nice lady for a couple of minutes. She's like, "I'll have my husband call you back." I'm in their property 30 minutes later, walking through this big warehouse, and it was just a cool experience, And
sometimes you just run into people that are, connectors like
you
that. You
never know where you're going to run into that person.
Not at all.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got a few rapid fire questions for you.
Let's
here.
do
You ready for this?
Let's do it. Take another sip of water.
Okay, ready? Mm-hmm. You need to warm up a little bit. So, what's your favorite type of music?
That one's hard for me to lock down because I like
Next question.
all music.
No, just kidding. What'd you say?
I like all music.
All music.
I've been
Child
going to
of the 90s.
concerts.
Yeah.
From Grateful Dead to Nine Inch Nails in Madison Square Garden to Rusted Root, Fish, Widespread Panic to country music. I'm a classical music. I like it all.
Yeah, I actually studied music in college for a while, and
Nice.
So like the other day, I was making dinner and I had some Spanish flamenco guitar on YouTube or something like that, and Chrissy walked in and she, what is this? But I just got really, my dad also being from Brazil, I have a lot of eclectic tastes when it comes to music. But
I used to fall asleep to Slayer's Seasons in the Abyss and mow lawns to that, but I've also went to the last 4 Grateful Dead concerts at Giant Stadium in New York.
There you go.
So there's
Some
pretty big
some
gap
spread.
there.
Yeah,
I've been to opera in Russia and loved it, and everything in
culture,
between.
man.
Yeah.
I mean, life is to
Love
be.
reggae.
There was something about sucking the marrow of life, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
What's your favorite type of food?
Pizza.
Favorite restaurant in Lower Alabama?
Voyagers in Orange Beach is probably hands down the best restaurant in Lower Alabama for the last 20 years.
Okay. I've never been there. I'll have to give it a shot.
You do.
Okay.
You do.
Voyagers.
Steak night. Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite city outside of Mobile?
Oh.
You've lived a lot of places and been to a lot of places, so I can imagine this is more difficult than most.
That one is tough. It may be Key West.
Yeah, good reason.
Yeah.
City you want to go to but have yet to visit?
I want to do the entirety of the Med because I've missed that. So it's got to be somewhere in the Mediterranean, probably Tenerife.
Okay. I know nothing about that. That sounds...
Canary
sounds-
Islands,
okay.
Tenerife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What comes to mind when I say guilty pleasure?
Pizza.
Morning person or night owl?
Yes.
Favorite movie or TV show? This is self-serving because I'm just looking for stuff to watch.
Working on Landman right now. If I can get my wife back into it, that's a pretty good one. Recently that we really enjoyed. And what is that? Kevin Costner. Everybody loved it. Rip. Horses.
I think I know.
Montana.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I can never remember the name of it when people
and
ask.
I didn't watch it either, so
That was a good one.
Was it?
That was a good one. That was a good one.
See, mine, like I was telling somebody earlier, my favorite thing to do right before I fall asleep is I put YouTube on and I watch Family Feud.
I love Family Feud. I love Family Feud, and I love the Celebrity Family Feud.
Yeah, those are
probably the best.
Yeah. But I
'cause they're
love it because I think there's some aspect of you're working your brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're guessing, you're trying to play along with it, calling them idiots when they don't get it right. But, it's just a very lighthearted way of doing it, and I think...
And there's no drama.
Yeah, there's no drama, and I don't... I'm not real big on watching things that are going to have a lot of drama or, killings or, anything like that. Before I go to sleep, I want to have happy thoughts, right? So...
I'm with you.
What's a skill that you have that would surprise people?
I can fly a helicopter.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's
pretty
badass.
awesome. Yeah.
Really. I mean, like, hats off. Do you still fly or no? I mean,
No, and at the time that I left the National Guard, I was a CW2. I was moving to New Orleans. I was taking over that market. It was a huge responsibility, and I had resigned out of this local National Guard unit. And there's very few things in life where I go, I really wish I hadn't done that. The girlfriend I had at the time, she had a daughter with neurological issues. There was a lot of time in Pensacola at Women's and Children's. There was just a lot at that time going on, and I had to let it go. And I feel like I let my brothers down, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. But
in the military, it's big about the person you're left and right.
You're a Marine too, so I get how you guys are.
Yeah, we are. Bunch of crayon-eating fools, but we love each other and we look out for each other. And if anything in my life where I feel like I let some folks down, it was probably there, because I'd love to still be there doing it.
I get that, but I just, I also understand that, it's a huge sacrifice that you've made already, and that at some point in time you have to pass that mantle on down to the next generation of people.
So hard to think that way from these shoes, though.
I get it.
I mean, it just is. But I get it. You're right.
Yeah. What are you most thankful for? It's not a rapid fire.
My family. My wife and my kids, without a doubt. And anybody I offend on I-10 between Mobile and Gulf Shores, I apologize. But if it's at the end of the day, I was telling somebody this the other day, Rita with Bryant Bank. I said, I want my legacy. If a drunk driver were to come across the median tomorrow, I would want somebody to get up at my funeral and say, the thing I respected about Stuart the most is as soon as he clocked out, it was 100 miles an hour to those boys and his wife.
Not literally, in case you're in the police force.
Not literally. That to me, people say you have no idea what's coming when you have kids and how it's going to change you. And I didn't. Hobbies, I'd love to fish. I used to blue water tournament fish with my buddy Chris Bazar and Grander Marine. Love those folks like family. I'd love to do it.
It comes back.
But I got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old.
No, as somebody
and a business that's 3 years old.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot. And my wife has to do 90% of the heavy lifting. So I'm trying to get home every day before bedtime so that I can help with something.
Yeah.
Because she is got so much on her shoulders and has for so long, that my goal at the end of the day is to be that dad. And I heard somebody talking about Ryan Reynolds, and I think it was his wife talking about him coming home from filming Deadpool, and like he would get home still in costume with fake blood everywhere and she was like, he'd come home, park the car, jump over the bushes, and run in the front door to his kids. And I'm like, that's what I want my wife to say about me, is that she sees the excitement and the fulfillment in my eyes and the peace and calming over my body when I walk in that door and see her and my boys. That is, and River Girl. I love you, River Girl. That's my dog. She's my OG. She's been my ride or die for a long time.
Oh my gosh. Tell people where they can find you.
Mobile.pauldavis.com is our website. You look us up on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're in all of those. I'm the president of the Mobile Claims Association locally, so if you're in the insurance world, second Tuesday of every month, we're at Dave & Buster's. We've got guest speakers providing CE credits for folks and helping promote that industry that I've been involved in for a long time, and I really care about, love those people. If there's somewhere that I can help other people promote their business, that's where you're going to see me. I'm that guy that'll stand up in front of the crowd and say, hey, that's the banker that gave me my SBA loan. Everybody use her because she's so much better than everybody else. That's me. So if there's a chamber event where I can yell out how good somebody else is, or big in B&I. I love B&I. If you're a small business owner and you don't do B&I,
question it.
You need to question yourself. The ROI on $700 a year and 1 hour a week is insanity if you're in the right group. Yeah. So those are the places you find me, and in and out of people's houses, trying to help them get through their worst time.
There you go. Well, I want to thank you again for coming on the podcast. To wrap up, any final thoughts or comments?
Choose your company carefully. There's some good ones here. I recommended Po' Boy 911 yesterday, one of my competitors. Chaslin Raymer, Jared Raymer's wife, and I used to work together in the finance world back in the day, and I just realized that we are both in the industry together, and we've come in behind them on jobs to do the rebuild where a carrier gave us that assignment versus them, and they do great work. And so I'm even that guy. I feel like we do better together than we do in competition.
100%.
And so
There's
you're welcome, Jared. But I love people, and I love people that are doing the right thing, even if they're my competition. So sometimes that hurts me, I'm sure. But in the long run, I'm sure it won't do anything but help the entire community.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Well, I appreciate your willingness to sit with me and share your journey as a business owner and entrepreneur. It's been great talking with you.
It's been wild.
Yeah.
It's been a wild journey.
Yay.
Thanks for having me.